Hello, this is Chris. I forgot to turn the light on. You're on Reality Shadow Ban. Today I'm doing example 14 of all the scams around. This one's pretty gnarly. This one's about Johnson and Johnson. That was actually it was quite a good company at one point in time in America. And once the I'm only gonna play a little bit of this from the middle where the decline happens, which is what we're dealing with. But the company was good at one point, or at least tried to be good, and really lost its way. And this is pretty standard procedure, even for good cults. Because a company is a cult. Come on. So any cult that has good leadership eventually gets taken over by bad leadership, and they grift off of the social capital that was garnered and gained and goodwill that was created by the founders. So pretty standard procedure. So we're gonna go into, if you didn't know about Johnson and Johnson and how they should not be supported at this point if you're into that. And all of this is, of course, alleged. I don't know any of this for real, but logically answered. Go give him a like and subscribe. He does good stuff sometimes. I think he might have stock in some of these companies, and he has like puts on other ones. So that's what I'm thinking, because he's definitely not even handed with how he doles out his praise and scorn. Anyway, let me get into it. So I'm gonna do a like on this one. Subscribe. There we go. Here we go.
With time, it seems that J&J has drifted further and further away from this gold standard, starting off with small infractions here and there. A perfect example of this is the illegal marketing of Risperdal. If you're not familiar with Risperdal, it's an antipsychotic that's used to treat schizophrenia, bipolar disorder.
Fair use, by the way. And we're just gonna watch a little bit of this, and I'll leave links for this in the show notes. This is probably one of the more minor ones, but it gives you the idea of the things that they are willing to do, and without anybody checking this stuff and lawsuits being filed, they just do it.
Disorder and irritability caused by autism. Risperdal has been instrumental for many people over the years, but like any medication, it comes with side effects, and it's not applicable to everyone. One group of people that should not take Risperdal is older adults with dementia-related psychosis, and this was crystal clear since the medication was approved by the FDA in 1994. Nonetheless, J&J paid Omnicare, who is the largest pharmaceutical supplier for nursing homes, to promote Risperdal, and it wasn't until a whistleblower outed J&J in 2010 that they got caught. And the penalty for this despicable behavior.
So they're taking advantage of seniors who are in the final stages of their life, who have dementia, don't know what's happening, and they're dosing them with these drugs. And the only reason we know is because one good person from the inside came out and said it. There was a $2.2 billion settlement. How much money are these guys making?
Was a mere $2.2 billion. For perspective, J&J profits $20 billion per year, which means that this penalty cost them a little more than a month of their current profits. This is just the tip of the iceberg, though. J&J has also been linked with foreign bribery. Apparently, their sales reps paid doctors in Greece, Poland, and Romania to sell medication and medical devices. They also bribed officials in Iraq to win contracts. And the fine for all this? A measly $78 million. Aside from this, J&J...
That's nothing. This is hardcore white collar. This is the kind of crime that can go undetected and just keep going for years, and just abusing people and the fines they give. People are being paid off just to pay a fine. That's, there's backdoor deals because they're all getting caught doing front door deals.
Has also gotten a lot more aggressive when it comes to protecting their patents. When we're talking about patents related to medical devices and medications, that's at least understandable. They usually have to invest hundreds of millions, if not billions, to create these products. So it makes sense that they don't want to get ripped off right after launch. Something that doesn't make sense, though, is the fact that J&J has previously tried to prevent the American Red Cross from using the Red Cross. If you didn't know, J&J actually owns the trademark for the Red Cross symbol. And in 2007, they sued the American Red Cross to stop using the emblem.
Really? That's completely antithetical to their founders. You have to go watch the first part of this video, but that's completely out. What? So that's why it's these companies are actually microcosms of not just cults but societies and empires. It may have started off on a good foot for good reasons, and it was the survivors and the people that could make a society work for a while, and then it starts to turn into this grifting thing. Eventually, it seems like most societies devolve unless they have a hardcore something else going on.
Yeah, I don't think anything more has to be said about that. While these petty lawsuits, corruption, and the marketing are inexcusable in themselves, it turned out that J&J actually had much darker secrets behind the curtains. One of the biggest lawsuits that has plagued J&J recently is the baby powder lawsuit. It is alleged that the talc-based powder that is iconic
This one's terrible. I can't believe that this. I know my mom used this and she thought she was doing us a favor, but I was always sketchy about it. I don't really care about anything else. The shampoo, baby, it was like whatever. I mean, it said no more tears. I'm like, you're kidding me. This thing, that's not a thing. And she goes, I know, but it's just like you make it the babies and all this. I'm like, oh, okay, whatever, man. And I knew that this thing was a scam, this baby powder thing. I didn't know why as a kid, but I was like, there's something wrong with that. I would play with the bottle and like squirt out the. I know I've got it all in my lungs. Ooh.
to their baby powder is actually contaminated with asbestos. The obvious reasoning for this is that the mines in which talc is mined are often lined with asbestos, so it's only natural that the talc is also contaminated with asbestos. But it was assumed that J&J had procedures and protocols in place to ensure that asbestos wouldn't show up in the final product. J&J, it was assumed
Salesman. There's your salesman. Anybody that looks like this and is selling pharmaceuticals, you know you're probably gonna get cancer.
that J&J had procedures and protocols in place to ensure that asbestos wouldn't show up in the final product.
In Minecraft, allegedly.
J&J, of course, insists that they do indeed have such procedures in place and they deny all allegations. But this didn't stop 40,000 cancer patients whose cancer may have been caused by asbestos from banding together and filing lawsuits against J&J.
And how many more out there that don't even know anything about this or have already died or dead?
And the evidence that surfaced since then is disturbing to say the least. Allegedly, J&J found asbestos in their talc multiple times as early as 1972.
I was born in '68. So yeah, I got a healthy dose of the J&J cancer agent. Jesus Christ.
But they didn't even notify the FDA. Instead of making change, J&J has opted to use legal loopholes to avoid liability, which came to light just earlier this year through Reuters. Apparently, J&J created a highly confidential plan called Project Plato. The plan entailed creating a new subsidiary and then shifting all the lawsuits to this new subsidiary.
Look at these guys. They're gonna use some accounting tricks to get rid of it. This is like the Great Taking, which I just did an interview with Chad Elkins about. Like, this is the kind of shit they're into.
From there, the subsidiary would declare bankruptcy, which would push the cases to bankruptcy court and substantially reduce payouts. There are even allegations that J&J tried to
Like they don't have enough money. $20 billion a year for dealing specious products that may actually hurt people more than they help. What the hell?
get a federal judge to block Reuters from publishing their findings. I don't know about you.
I block the findings. You know it's bad. When they got to block the findings, you know it's real bad.
But that's highly sus to say the least. And that's not the only scandal that J&J has been caught up in either. J&J has also been embroiled in opioid lawsuits for the past several years as well. If you're not familiar with opioids, it's a substance that acts on opioid receptors to produce morphine-like effects.
Yeah, we're familiar with the opioid guy.
It's usually used in pain relief medications and anesthesia, and it can be instrumental
for.
when used properly. But if it ends up in the wrong hands, it can quickly lead to drug addictions and deaths due to overdose. You would think that pharmaceutical companies would be extremely careful when it came to distributing opioids, but they were actually doing the exact opposite. Between 2006 and 2015, opioid companies spent $880 million on lobbying efforts to keep opioids easily accessible. Fortunately, all of this
That's all legal money too. It's all priced in the price of the product. Like you didn't know lobbyist scam. I gotta do a video on that. Lobbyist is just legalized bribery. You know how if they get doing that on the top, you know how much they're doing someplace else. You don't see it. That's like it's like look over here. Why he's like the magicians do it. It's like look over here. Why he's just picking your pockets clean.
did eventually come to light, and pharmaceutical companies, including J&J, agreed to a settlement of $26 billion at the beginning of this year. But this doesn't really mean anything because the damage has already been done. Since 1999, 760,000 people have.
Holy smokies, man. No one's going to prison, and no one will go to prison. This will continue on until everyone that wants to get overdose will.
Died due to drug overdose, and 2/3 of these deaths in 2018 involved opioids. Personally, I don't think J&J can ever wipe their hands clean after this one.
All right. Yeah, I'm spreading the word, guy. That's the scam about how many of these pharmaceutical agents. How many movie stars? These are all they all have the same ideas, so you know that they're all doing the same stuff. There's just not enough people willing to step forward because these guys have a lot of power and they do a lot of dirty stuff. I'm glad I live in Mexico.